Salute Kebuka. This is Brother Asafo, Minister of Information of the New African Blood Brotherhood, and this is the Pan-Afrikanist. But first, I want to salute Brother J. Bendele, my brother Abiyade, Chairman N-ABB Asafo, Brother Dora Okol Bull over in the Sudan, Brother Mansa Fode Ajamu over in Sierra Leone, my brother Akode, and my brother Akoni. I want to first start with a quote from our master teacher and honorable ancestor, Dr. John Henry Clark. Pan movements are not new in the world. These movements existed long before the use of the prefix Pan was a part of a group's organizational name. Any movement by an ethnic group to recover and reclaim their history, culture, and national identity after slavery, war, or migration, forced or otherwise, can be called a Pan movement. The Pan-Afrikanist, succinctly, is one who espouses the concept of identifying a common cultural kinship with other Africans, no matter their geographical location worldwide, with the emphasis being placed on the displaced descendants of the millions forcefully removed from the mother continent by Europeans beginning in the 16th century during the transatlantic slave trade, not to forget the Arab interlopers before that, along with other hostile forces and circumstances which dispersed Africans into a global diaspora. This concept applies continentally as well, as a measure of countervailing the parasitic encroachment of Western powers who created colonial borders to divide the African continent into competing nominal nation states to better optimize their ongoing plunder and theft of Africa's natural resources, conquest by division. Pan-Africanism, accordingly, is the more overarching political concept developed for all intents and purposes to resolve these contradictions via revolutionary praxis or theory and practice. The word Pan, as we know, means all, and when prefixed to the word African, it signifies the collectivity of all Africans globally, ideally to be assembled across ethnic or clan or subcultural lines into a single cohesive African-centered movement to reclaim our self-determination. The reality on the ground, however, is that not all Africans will be joining us in this struggle. In fact, many, as have happened in the past, will stand in opposition to our righteous cause today. Historically speaking, a failure to effectively consolidate the many moving parts in terms of the multilithic cultural dynamic reflected throughout the continent, as well as a failure to assert a unified resistance to the artificial borders created by European colonizers, left the Pan-African project vulnerable to the betrayals it suffered. Hence, the several Pan-African congresses convened at various periods throughout the 20th century, with the first held in London, England in 1900 by H. Sylvester Williams, though regarded as significant milestones at their respective times, yielded very little substantive direction, leaving no clear path forward. A situation highlighted by the irony of the Sixth Pan-African Congress being convened for the first time on African soil, that is, in Tanzania in 1974, only to see the banning of several notable Pan-Africanists from attending, including warrior scholar Walter Rodney, who was arrested and later assassinated, an irony further punctuated by the fact that the very location, Tanzania, came to be as a result of an act of Pan-Africanism in action. In April of 1964, Julius Nyerere of Tanganyika and Abeid Karume, president at the time of Zanzibar, joined forces and formed the United Republic of Tanzania, Tan from Tanganyika and Zan from Zanzibar, forming literally Tanzania. And as president of Tanzania, Nyerere began in earnest to develop an African-centered socio-economic system based on Ujamaa, or collective economics, or familyhood, as laid out in his broader communitarian blueprint called the Arusha Declaration. Another example is the merging of the Lower and Upper Nile in Kemet, falsely called Egypt, along with many others. However, European imperialists, being the potentates of capitalism that they are, achieved a measure of success in rolling back some of the most rudiment models of collective economic development made by dozens of African nations, by destabilizing their burgeoning economies, by way of the economic hitman tactics employed by the IMF and World Bank, among others, which included coups, assassinations, neo-colonialism, or capitulations and other nefarious maneuverings. And as a gesture of salvaging some vestige of the concept of Pan-Africanism on the mother continent, we saw the forming of the Organization of African Unity, or OAU, which proved to be as ineffective as the many flag states that formed it, leaving the Pan-African movement floundering and in a crisis of its own political identity. Therefore, the new African Blood Brotherhood has arisen to do our part in reestablishing its credibility and to reload it with the useful ideas of our forerunners and contemporaries, with a clear-headed recognition that the revolutionary path is the only path. Thus, Itu Njia Mapinduzi, revolution is our way. Our core orientation is unapologetically African-centered. We recognize, however, that it isn't enough to be African in name alone, or in dress, or speech, or any other outward display, minus actively engaging in struggle for African independence. Ow!